Hey guys, I'm back again, only 2 weeks this time since my last video, and I'm here to talk to you today about finding gold in archaeology, which I think is a pretty interesting topic. Anytime there's something gold is found on an archaeological site, there's usually a big to-do about it, and I think also a lot of people have some misconceptions about the realities of finding gold in archaeology. Have you ever found gold is something that's usually a pretty common question for people to ask archaeologists after, do you dig dinosaurs? And it's also something that's kind of mildly irritating, at least to myself. And it's something that usually you'll get asked by, random members of the public if they're walking by your site, or if you're working on a construction site and there's a lot of people around. The guys that work there will ask you, have you found anything? Have you found any gold yet? If you find any gold, let me know, and all this other stuff. And I know that they're joking, but they're also sort of serious. And it kind of implies to me, at least, that I'm just in this career to find gold, or that I'm kind of a glorified treasure hunter. And that's not true. I didn't join this profession in order to find something gold and become really famous. And also archaeology nowadays especially is about so much more than just finding some cool treasure. Also, probably one of the first things you're ever going to get told, either working in archaeology or studying archaeology, is to expect to find gold ever, because it's something that just really doesn't happen that often. And so I think people have this misconception that it's something that we're finding all the time, or it's something that we try to keep secret from the public, and that's really not the case. In a direct contrast to what a lot of people think, it's actually quite rare to find gold on an archaeological site, for a variety of reasons. One of which is that in the millennia between when the gold was deposited wherever it is and you digging it, that's a lot of time for somebody to find it and loot it. And there was a lot of looting that went on in antiquity. I think it's something that not a lot of people kind of think about. The Egyptians looted the pyramids. It wasn't them as a whole society, but people in ancient Egypt looted ancient Egyptian tombs. It wasn't just something that started happening in the past couple hundred years. And like I said, there's a lot, the amount of time that goes between deposition and excavation means that there's a lot of opportunity for that to happen. I know that the site that I worked on when I was on field school in Jordan had a gold scarab beetle from Egypt found, and this site was in Jordan, it wasn't in Egypt. And the scarab was much older than the site itself, and it had actually been looted in antiquity in Egypt and then brought to Jordan, and where we found it a couple of millennia later. So again, this is a prime example of that happening. Additionally, a lot of what you would kind of consider to be the great treasures that have been left and not been looted have usually been excavated already. The best example is Howard Carter's discovery of the tomb of Tutankhamun back in the early part of the 20th century. Or, a lot of these things have already been excavated by antiquarians a lot of the time because they were specifically looking to find these things, to find these great caches of treasure. Whereas nowadays, archaeology as a discipline is more concerned with not so much finding treasure, but just finding anything and everything that you can about people in antiquity. And they're more concerned with the overall picture of a site rather than, just finding something really cool that you can splash across the front of a bunch of newspapers. Lastly, we have the problem nowadays of people who do illegal metal detecting. Now, metal detecting is something that can be perfectly legal for you to do. However, there are people that do it illegally, and they poach sites, and they are looking to find gold or a very valuable metal that they can either sell on the black market or claim a finder's fee for and make a bunch of quick money off of. And they don't have the same kind of process as an archaeologist. And not just metal detectors are looking to loot stuff. There's other ways to kind of loot a site, but metal detecting is the #1 way that people will find gold and loot it from a site, rather than just coming across it by accident. Now, when you find gold on an actual archaeological site, it can be quite a double-edged sword, because on one hand, the security of your site has immediately been compromised. this is partially because like word just gets out. The minute you find something really exciting, it just spreads. It's not really something that can be helped, and it's something that's really, really hard to control, especially nowadays when you have things like mobile phones with cameras that people can just take a picture and send to their friends. In that way, that you're potentially going to start attracting the attention of what are known as night hawks, which are people that metal detect archaeological sites illegally at night after we've gone home. And then you come back in the morning and there's holes everywhere. The site that I worked on when I was on field school, you actually weren't even allowed to say the word gold on site because we had Bedouin workers who worked with us, and while, you know, they spoke Arabic and a tiny bit of English, they know what the word gold sounds like, and the minute that you say that, there's a bigger chance that you're gonna again come over in the morning and there's holes going to be everywhere, and they've destroyed a lot of the archaeological information that you're trying to find. Even if they haven't actually found any gold, it can be quite destructive, just the fact that they're looking for it. So when you find gold, you're going to have to really amp up your security overnight. The best example of this is a site where they had found like a gold hoard in a field in the middle of nowhere, and until they could go back and excavate it, they had to put in a deterrent. They essentially had to have like a you can't talk about this policy to anybody, and they paid the farmer, I guess, whose land the hoard was on, to put a bull in the field that the hoard was located in order to deter people from walking around, which is probably the cheapest security they ever had to pay for. On the other hand, gold and the publicity that it's going to bring to a site are a good thing, because it helps to kind of justify the reasons of why archaeologists are there and the work that they have to do. And, you know, it's really difficult to kind of get just the average person to understand why, you know, a small piece of burnt hazelnut or something in a Mesolithic flint scatter would be really important. Whereas you tell somebody that you found gold and immediately they're going to know that's something insignificant. So the publicity that it brings to a site is really going to benefit you, because it's going to bring in people's interest, and like I said, it's going to justify why you're there, and people will be more well dispositioned towards giving you more time and money to do what you're doing if you can prove that there's something valuable happening at this place. However, I think maybe sometimes people think that we directly profit from the fact that we find gold, which we don't. So like when you're working on an archaeological site and gold is found, the gold is going to most likely belong or end up in the hands of an archaeological company, and at some point it will just end up in a museum. Whereas, say, a metal detectorist finds some gold, especially in England, you know, the person who finds the gold and the landowner of wherever this piece of gold comes from, they're both going to get a share of the profit that comes from the sale of this to wherever it ends up going. But an archaeological company, like, that never happens. So we never directly profit from finding gold, aside from the fact that it, you know, is some good PR. In a way, that's why it's kind of insulting to infer that I'm just in this job to find a piece of gold and become famous, because that, like, never happens. Additionally, like, I'm never going to get credit for finding a piece of gold. It's going to be the company that I work for, the site, whatever. I'm not going to be the person that's on the news talking about this piece of gold that I found generally. It's going to be my site director, the person that knows what they're talking about. So, like, I'm never, like, I'm going to get a really cool story to tell people, but, like, other than that, I'm not really going to receive any benefit from it. Have I ever found gold? The short answer to this is no. I have never personally come across something and found gold. However, I did, just this past year, I was on site when gold was found, which again, like I said, is a big deal. I was working this job back in September. I only ended up doing like a week on it because I left just after to come to the job that I'm on now. And I was working on this site up in Scotland called Carnoustie. We were stripping the site in anticipation of an excavation, and we'd already found like a roundhouse and a couple other exciting things that were going to show that this site was actually already going to be pretty significant, when one of my colleagues found essentially a Bronze Age weapons hoard, I guess you could call it. It was a very, very exciting day. it ended up being a bronze spearhead that had this little like gold decoration on like the hilt of where you'd attach the wooden spear to the spearhead. There was also a sword that we could see, and it was inside this pit. It was actually kind of interesting because the same day we'd had already a couple reporters there from the local news who were taking photos of us to do a news story on the other stuff that we had found so far, and they were on site when we found it. So like I was saying before, word spreading, just, it's like wildfire because it was already being photographed by the news pretty much as soon as our like the rest of our company was finding out about it as well. It was a very busy day after it was found because, you know, the council found out and they came out to see it. We had to hire a security guard like immediately so that they could be there overnight to again prevent people from coming who heard about it from coming and looting the site overnight. The police came by to check it out. And my like site director was just fielding phone calls all day, like left, right, and center from everybody. And it was just very exciting. Like we were all kind of like shaking about the fact that we found it. Or that my colleague found it. We later had to block excavate this pit that it was in, wrap it in some saran wrap, and lift it into the back of our truck and take it back to the lab. We weren't allowed to excavate this because we could see that there was like some wood along the line of this sword, and that immediately means that there's a lot of possibility for organic stuff to have survived, which is again very rare thing to happen, and you don't want to be losing even the smallest piece of what might be in this pit or this hoard. And we didn't have any sieves on site, so the best way for this to get excavated and to make sure that you're retaining like 100% of what's actually within this context is to take it into a lab and do it like so painstakingly slowly that you just can't miss anything. And it also, I think it got x-rayed, it got CT scanned, it got probably got photographed to death. So you're gonna get the maximum not like data from excavating it in a lab. Additionally, that day we were told we're not allowed to post anything about it on social media. They didn't even like want you talking to your friends about it. That's like how much they wanted to keep a lid on it. But unfortunately, because the news reporters were there, you can't really control what's going to make it out to the public in that way. So the reason I'm talking about it now instead of back when the original news was published is that the company I was working for has just released all of the results from the lab excavation of the actual block of dirt that we lifted out, and it's really exciting. I've provided the link below in the description if you're interested in reading about it. But yeah, it was probably one of the most like exciting days I've ever had in my career, and one of those days we were just like, oh my god, I fucking love my job. So it was really exciting, but you know, I'm not really ever expecting to have a day like that ever again. Not that I'm not going to find something else that's really exciting that's not gold, but you know, that is something that is really special. Just any time that you get to hold something in your hands that nobody's touched for millennia, you're going to get like a rush and this like sense of like, this is so cool. Like all my other videos, I hope that this has been informative for you and I've maybe provided you with an interesting perspective of what archaeology is actually like versus what you think it is like. Yeah, I've been waiting to make this for a while, and I was really excited this week when I saw that all these results had been published. So please check out the link, it's really interesting. If you like this video, please thumbs up. If you have any questions for me, please comment below. If you want to follow me on Twitter, that would also be cool. I post sometimes. I'm still figuring out Twitter, and hopefully I'll have another video for you either next week or the week after. So yeah, I hope you like this video, and I'll see you guys all next time. Thank you, bye!